So hey everyone, so we're going to get started if that's all right. So I see a few people in here that I recognize. I see a few new faces, which is wonderful. If we have not met before, my name is Courtney Wagner. I work in the Student Services Office. I'm the student recruiter / financial advisor here at the faculty. Obviously, it's more that financial hat that I'm wearing to talk to you here today. So we have two wonderful presenters here from the Office of the Registrar, from Student Financial Support Services, always mix that one up, here to talk a little bit about life after law school and what those options look like for you. So I will pass things over to them.
Thanks so much, Courtney. My name is Haley, and I'm the Student Loan Coordinator at Student Financial Support. So I deal mostly with the government student loans, and this is...
I'm Sydney. I do a little bit of everything.
She does a little bit of everything. So we've crammed a lot of information in the presentation today. We were like, we've got to talk about debt repayment and these other million things. But just to let you know, this presentation will be available afterwards. The slides will be available afterwards, so if there's anything we don't cover, you'll always have that resource. And we also wanted to send you away with a lot of really good online resources as well. We'll share the online version of this as well, because I know it's kind of weird to just have a paper with links on it, but at least now you have something to take away, and we'll also have online version available for you. The nice thing about financial literacy in Canada, there are lots of really good resources that you can access after this. So this will be your crash course today in some of these topics, but there will be lots of a space for you to go do research after, or just take a look or play around with some of the resources online afterwards as well.
Sorry, I can interrupt.
Please do.
We will also, we are filming this if you have not noticed. So we will have this available online. So if after this you're like, oh, my friend would have really liked to see it and she couldn't make it, we'll make sure that happens for you. So.
Perfect. All right, just a really quick rundown for anybody who wasn't here before, who doesn't know of us. Student Financial Support is in the Office of the Registrar. Office of the Registrar is just a fancy way of saying that we're in the administration building on the first floor. Administration building being the brick building next to Sub. In our office, we do everything from scholarships and awards, government student loan advocacy, and advising. That advocacy piece means that we are a part of provincial and federal advocacy groups that lobby for better student loan options for students. We do a bursary funding. The supplementary bursary runs through our office, emergency funding, as well as these financial literacy sessions. That's the other thing I was going to mention after today. Money Talks is our suite of financial literacy sections. We have a session on this topic as well. So if you wanted a little bit more in depth, we have an entire another hour you could come to totally free if you wanted more info. Just check our website, which is on here. Cool. All right, so when it comes to life after law school, really life after any school, you might have to be thinking about some stuff. You might already start thinking about some things, including things like repaying of government student loans if you have a government loan, debt repayment strategies, savings. What is the difference between a TFSA and RRSP? I should know that. I don't know what it is, things like that. And maybe renting versus buying a home if you haven't already started thinking about those sorts of things. We're going to quickly go through some of debt repayment and specific to government student loans. That's my wheelhouse. If you have any questions, just let me know. If you have really specific questions, we'll be sticking around after. You can come up and chat with us. Also, just to note, most of this information is specific to Alberta student loans and Canada student loans. But if you have a government student loan from another province, BC, Ontario, Saskatchewan, the national side of it will remain the same, but if you have province-specific questions, maybe just come up and chat with us afterwards, or you'll have to check with your province. All right, so when it comes to government student loans, you will need to start repaying your loan if you graduate, or if you leave, or if you drop to part-time studies, or if you take more than 6 months off. Really, once you are no longer a full-time student, your full-time student loans go into repayment status, okay? And depending on which province you're from, you might also need to start repaying if you drop to part-time. Interest rates, certainly not the thing I was interested in or cared about when I first took out my student loan, became a lot more interested in when I graduated. Currently, the floating interest rate for Alberta student loans is prime, and for Canada student loans is prime plus 2.5. If you have an Alberta student loan, if you're an Alberta resident, you have, when you enter repayment, when you graduate, and it's time to start paying back your student loans, in Alberta, you actually have 2 loans to pay. Every month you'll be making 2 loan payments if you have both loans. You'll be paying an Alberta student loan and a Canada student loan. BC and Ontario, you make 1 payment. In Alberta, we make 2. That's why there are different interest rates. A little bit of information about line of credit, so a loan from the bank, essentially. Some students might choose to pay off their government student loan, pay off with a line of credit. Because as you see, there are bank line of credits that have that lower interest rate, certainly than the government student loan. You can certainly get a line of credit with a lower interest rate than this. Keeping in mind that interest rate your government student loans are completely interest-free, payment-free while you are a full-time student. But if you have a line of credit, some students will choose to pay off all of their student loan with a line of credit, so kind of transferring that debt from one to another, the one with the lower interest rate. That's certainly an option for you. And we just want to let you know, to be aware of a few things if you choose to do that. Make sure that you understand the terms of repayment on your line of credit from the bank, and each of them can be different. They might have different terms, the length of years that they've termed it out at. The interest rates may change. So while you're a student, that interest rate might be quite low. When you stop being a student and the bank finds out, they might raise that interest rate on you. So just being really aware of what those terms are of that line of credit. They might not allow you to make additional payments on top of it, whereas government student loans is happy to take your money at any time. The line of credit may have more restrictions in terms of what those payments can look like. So I don't work for the government, I don't work for the bank. We just want you to be aware of these things when you have a line of credit and may choose to do that option. Then lastly, there are repayment plans in place for government student loans. So if you can't make payments, the government has some repayment plans that you could access. Most professional student line of credits don't go into repayment until 24 months after the end of studies, which is pretty good. It's a pretty good deal. If you, like I said, choose to pay it off with the line of credit, there is a program called the Repayment Assistance Plan to the Government of Canada, or RAP, pretty cool name, that is there for you if you can't make monthly payments on your government student loans. You obviously won't be eligible for RAP if you pay off the government student loan debt with the line of credit. And interest charged on your government student loans, probably one of the best benefits is that interest charged payments that you make to your government student loans are eligible for a tax benefit when it comes to tax time. Okay? So just some things to keep in mind, choosing the line of credit route, whichever one works best for you, but knowing what the terms of your line of credit are is important. Make sense so far? Awesome. All right, one of the most important things, if you have a government student loan, that I try to impress on everyone, one of the most important things, aside from making your minimum monthly payment on any debt, is accessing these 2 portals. Do either of these portals look familiar to anyone? Maybe like one person. They certainly didn't look familiar to me when I was doing my student loan. This is a portal for the National Student Loan Service Center, and that is the portal for your Alberta student loan. The Alberta student loan is a different portal than when you applied for the government student loan. So they have a third portal. That loan, the SIAMS portal that you apply for your Alberta student loan, you don't need that once you are no longer applying for loans. This is the portal that you can log into. You can see how much you owe, how much interest is accruing every time your payment is made. You can log in and see how much of the payment went towards the principal, how much went to the interest. You can change some of your payment options right through these portals. If I can impress anything, it's to remember where your passwords are, to log in, and keep an eye on this. It is the best way to make sure that you are maintaining your minimum monthly payments. It's the best way to just be like, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. Every month when I was in repayment, I went and logged in. My favorite day of the month was when I made my payment, and then I would log in and be like, it made it on the loan. Something is happening. These are really important portals to keep in mind. Okay? Make sense so far? If you have another province, if you're from another province, you'll have their own portal. Yay. Or several portals. Or several portals. All right. A little bit about the specific government student loan grace period. And I say grace period, but it's really more of a non-repayment period. And you'll see what I mean in a second. When you are no longer a student, let's say you finish in April, you will enter a 6-month non-repayment period. In that time, in that 6 months, you do not need to make payments. They are not requesting payments. They give you 6 months to get on your feet. At the end of that 6 months, you will enter your repayment period, at which time you have to start making payments towards your student loans. Does that make sense? Basically, if you graduate in April, payments on your student loan are due end of November. At that time, if you can't make a payment, we'll talk about some options for that, but that's That's the general gist of that there. The only exception is if you go on parental leave. Yeah?
Are payments due in arrears, or are they due the first of each month with your common interest?
Yeah, they set the payment date at the end of each month, so it's always the last day of the month. So automatically.
Starts accruing on the 1st of April?
So for interest, your Alberta student loan, starting the 1st April, May, the Alberta student loan is interest-free, payment-free that entire time. Interest will only start accruing in that 6 months. Interest on the Alberta student loan only starts accruing in November. The Canada student loan is payment-free in those 6 months, but does start accruing interest in that 6 months. So if you have a Canada student loan and an Alberta student loan, they have different interest rates and different times when the interest starts to accrue. If you can start making payments for some reason, let's say you get a sweet gig right after school, you want to start making payments towards your student loan, it is beneficial to make student loan payments obviously towards your Canada because it's accruing interest during that time.
So sorry, the Canada student loan starts accruing as of April 1st, May 30th, or April 30th?
May 1st. Starts accruing interest as of May 1st. So the first day of the month after your end of study day.
Perfect.
Make sense? April, May. Yeah, that's the month after April. Is that clear? Okay. As I had just said, Alberta is a true grace period. It's interest-free and payment-free. Canada is a non-repayment period. So your Canada student loan is accruing interest, but payments are not required. Okay? Cool. Am I missing anything?
Nope.
No.
You're doing great.
If you, as I mentioned, can make payments, you're going to want to make it towards Canada if you are able to. Also, when you get to the end of your that 6-month grace period, let's say you have a little bit of chunk of money, maybe you didn't make payments, but you have a little bit of money in October, it might be strategic to pay off the interest on the Canada student loan that accumulated in that 6 months. Otherwise, it essentially is added to the principal for more or less. You also get the tax break if you do it that way, or the tax deduction if you do that way as well. So if you can't make payments every month during that 6-month grace period on the Canada student loan, but maybe you have $500 around or something, you want to make a lump sum payment, you could do it towards the interest that accrues in that 6 months for the Canada period. So if you got money around to do so. Mm-hmm. If you don't, that's okay. That's what that 6-month period is for. Just really quickly, some repayment strategies. If when you graduate, you might have a few debts right away. If you have an Alberta student loan, you might have an Alberta and a Canada student loan. So right there's 2 different debts. Maybe you have a line of credit. Maybe you have a credit card. Right away, you have four debts right there. There are some ways, some strategies that you can do to kind of help manage, how do I make all these payments? Just to make it a little bit smoother. There is the Snowball and the Avalanche Strategy. Have anybody heard of these fun terms? They use them sometimes on the websites that I frequent. And then you can also increase when you pay and how much you pay. The Avalanche and Snowball Strategy, I'm going to show you a chart. It'll make a little bit more sense. For Snowball, you're always making the minimum. So in this scenario, we're always making the minimum payment on all of our debts. It is very important that you make the minimum payment on all of your debts. In the Snowball Strategy, you're going to start, maybe you got extra $50, you want to make a little bit extra payment on your debt. So you're going to start by applying that extra $50 to the debt with the lowest balance and pay it off as quickly as you can. Then once that debt's paid off, you're not going to just spend it on other stuff now. You're going to keep it in debt repayment, but you're going to move it to the next highest debt. And then you're going to move it on. The Avalanche Strategy is the exact same, but instead of doing the smallest debt, you're going to do the debt with the highest interest rate. So the Snowball Strategy, let's say we have this here. Obviously, the HBC has the highest interest rate, that credit card, but it has the lowest balance. So in this strategy, we're paying the minimum payment. We're doing $348 of money every month towards minimum payment. But hey, I got a new job. I'm going to make an extra $100 payment every month. I'm going to add an extra $100 payment on my HBC credit card. In doing so, you're going to have that paid off in 9 months. And then you're going to take that $130, and you're not going to spend it. You're going to keep it on debt repayment. You're going to add it to the next one. You're still going to make $73 a month. You're going to add the $130 that you're already paying. That's going to be paid off in 3 years. Same thing, you move that $130 plus the $70 down to the $245, and that's paid off in 6 years. So your total interest there is $5,000 that you're paying, right? The Avalanche Strategy is very similar, but instead now we're flipping, where we're paying off the HBC first, but then we're paying off the Canada student loan next because it has the higher interest rate. If you do the same thing, you're making your minimum payments, it's going to be paid off in 9 months, but you're adding that extra $100. You add that $130 onto the next one, and that's paid off in 5 years. You're adding that, you're just avalanching it down to the 375, it's paid off in 6 years, which I know sounds like a long time, but just stick with me. In this one, you're paying about $1,000 less in interest by doing the Avalanche strategy. So these are strategies where, hey, I'm maintaining my minimum monthly payment, but I just need a way to organize my mind around how to make those payments. And I have a few extra bucks, how do I most strategically make those payments? When I graduated, I thought I'm gonna do the Avalanche strategy. I'm strategic. I absolutely needed to do the Snowball strategy. I needed to see the small one go away first. There is a reason why the Snowball strategy exists. And there is research that came actually out of the U of A School of Business that said the Snowball strategy, the first one, actually is more effective when you're making debt repayment. If you're lucky, they might line up where the highest interest rate one is also the smallest one. Sometimes that happens because your credit card is the high interest rate one. But these are some strategies you can employ to help frame those debt repayments. Make sense with me so far? All right. You can also, if you have money lying around, you could just pay more money towards your debt, and that's essentially what was happening in the Avalanche and Snowball strategy there, right? You had an extra $100, and it was just how do I use that $100 in the most effective way? It is, I will say, the number one thing, know your online portals for your student loan. Second is really important that you always make the minimum payment, right? On any debt. It is particularly difficult with student loan debt. You have to make a gazillion phone calls to get that student loan out of default. But any debt, you want to make sure that you're maintaining that minimum payment. Yeah, increasing the amount of frequency is going to save you a lot of money and a lot of time. We have a little credit card slider here. This is specific to credit cards, but you can check out on one side, the orange side is just paying the minimum, how long it'll take. On the other side, if you add a little bit extra money on it, how long it'll take if you add a little bit extra money. There's a million calculators for this online as well, but just a good visual. This is just another really good visual, basically what the sliders are doing. You have a credit card with a minimum payment of $180, it's at 3%. If you were to do the minimum payment, it would take you 19 years. The credit card will take you 19 years to pay off. When we do bursaries, we sometimes see students who are in debt for 100 years if they maintain their minimum payment only. So the original balance might have been $6,000, but in the end you're paying almost $12,000, almost double of that. So is the thing that you put on your credit card, I don't know, a coat for $100, actually $100 anymore? If you were to just add $10 to that minimum payment, it's only 12 years, but really, I know that sounds like a lot, but you're knocking a lot of years off there, right? And the amount you're saving right there is $1,300 that you're not giving to the bank for free. And then if you were to do a fixed payment of $200, you're paying it off in 3 years instead. So this sounds like a lot of money and it sounds like a lot of time, but if you are able to make that little bit additional, it is very important. Minimum payment is always required so that you're not going into default on your debts, but a little bit more than the minimum payment is extremely valuable. Makes a big difference. Makes a big difference. With me? Okay, cool. I know we're just rushing through it. It's so good though. The other really interesting thing is you can increase your frequency, at least for Canada and government student loans, you can increase the frequency. So you don't necessarily have to change how much you're paying, but if you change when you pay them, it can actually make a huge difference. When I learned this, I was already working in this job and my student, nobody told me this when I graduated from my student loans. That would have been a nice thing to know about. So for example, if you make payments every 2 weeks instead of monthly, and I know this chart might be a little bit difficult to see, but essentially, if you do nothing and you have a monthly payment for your student loan of $289, it's going to take you 114 months if you're just maintaining that monthly payment to pay that off. And you're paying a total interest of $8,000. If you increased it by $20, you're paying it off in 106 months, and the interest you're paying is $7,000. If you don't change your monthly payments, but say, hey, I got a tax return or something like that, I'm going to make an extra $250 payment just once this year. That actually brings it down a significant amount as well. But the really interesting column for me is making 2 payments every week. So instead of making a $289 payment, you're making a $144 payment, just half. You're making the same payment, you're just making it every 2 weeks instead. That actually brings it down to 102 months. And the interest that you're paying is $7,000 instead of the $8,000. So by actually not paying them out of not actually changing the amount that you're paying every month, but when you're paying them is a wonderful strategy that I wish somebody told me about. So imagine if you were making the payments every 2 weeks and increased your frequency by $20 or $50 or something like that, and you're employing the Avalanche Strategy, you're on your way. It's just an interesting strategy. Maybe that doesn't work because you do shift work or something like that, and maybe your paycheck comes in at not the right time. That's fine, but it is something to know about. With student loans, the nice thing about student loans is that you can, as I mentioned, make payments whenever. So you can make your minimum monthly payments coming out of your bank account whenever, but let's say you made a little extra money this month. I want to throw a few extra bucks on there. They're happy to take your money, and that works just fine for them. You can do it all through online banking. Just keeping in mind that other debts might have different thoughts about making payments whenever. Okay, closed debts. Okay, we're going. The Repayment Assistance Plan, the really cool RRSP. You would think I work for the government with how much I talk about this plan, but my job is in government student loans, and I do think that this is a very valuable program. Believe it or not, there is a whole conference on student loans every year. Courtney and Gloria came to this conference. And I remember there was an American in one of the sessions, and I mean, the American student loan system is crazy. But I remember him learning about RRSP, and he was like, you guys have this program? This is amazing. And he just kept fawning over it. I'm like, well, it's not very, but it is actually a really good program. All it is really, if you are having troubles of making your minimum monthly payments for your student loan at any point, maybe 5 years down the road, you can apply for the Repayment Assistance Plan online. If you're eligible, they will either lower the monthly payments that they require for you, or they'll say, hey, a $0 monthly payment while you get back up on your feet, and we'll take care of the interest for you for the next 6 months. It's essentially another 6-month grace period. I don't know if anybody is interested, but when the Liberals came to power, they had this whole thing that was like, we promise to, nobody has to make student loan payments under $27,000 a year, and that is true. It's just that it's not automatic. You have to apply for this program to be eligible for that, and they did bump up that threshold income in a positive way. But there is a program for you. The nice thing about this, maybe you graduate, you got a sweet gig, you're making your payments, everything's going really well, then something happens in life, maybe you don't have that sweet gig anymore, you need to apply for this. You can apply for this 5 years down the road, 2 years down the road. You can apply for it twice, 3 times in a row, however much that you need it, that is there for you. I applied for it when I graduated from school, because I graduated from school, and they said, these are your student loan payments, and I said, no. And
I can't.
And what it did, it gave me that extra 6 months, get on my feet. I got my job at the university, and I was okay. But it really just helped support me through that way. Hopefully not everybody needs that, but that's what it's there for. So never let the minimum payment slide, because we have a program to help if you can't make it. Cool. Oh, it's not my turn to talk anymore. Yay!
Yay! Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about savings vehicles. So just the one side is paying off the debt, the other side is saving for your future. So we're going to talk a little bit about TFSAs and RRSPs.
Crash course.
Crash course.
Crash course.
So TFSAs, or tax-free savings accounts, and RRSPs, registered retirement savings plans, are savings accounts that are registered with the government. They can both be opened at a multitude of financial institutions. Both of them are what we are considered empty baskets that can be filled with multiple types of investments. And if you're interested in that, you would just want to speak to a financial advisor, and they can advise you what types of investments you should put in there that would work best for you. So just a little bit of comparison between the two. So the TFSA is, the contributions are made with after-tax dollars, whereas the RRSP, the contributions are made with before-tax dollars. Both of them, the interest growth is tax-free. The TFSA is not taxed at withdrawal. The RRSP is taxed at withdrawal. And there are different amounts. You can only put in a certain amount per year. So the TFSA is up to a maximum of $5,500 a year, whereas the RSP is a percentage. So up to 18% of earned income from the previous year. So that might make a difference in which one you choose. The TFSA is good to use when your current income is lower than your income will be when you plan to withdraw the money. And the reason for that is because it's not taxed when you withdraw it. So it doesn't matter what your income is at that time. Does that make sense? And then the RRSP is the opposite. So it's good to use when your current income is equal to or higher than what your income will be when you plan to withdraw the money. So when you withdraw the money, your income should be less. That would be, so you would only be taxed on what you're taking out of the RRSP.
Which is why most people use it for retirement,
Yeah.
registered retirement.
Make sense? Yeah.
Again, really quick crash course. There are a bunch of resources on this sheet that we've passed along though, but if you just had some basic general questions.
So here's just an example of how it's never too late to start saving. I know that some people, or it's also something to think about too, there's never too little to start saving. So, you know, people might say, oh, I only have 20 bucks extra a month. Like, what's the point of even saving it? It will make a big difference in the long run. So just a couple of scenarios to compare. So Max never had any extra money to save. There was always something that needed to be done or bought, clothes, vacation, dinner with friends, etc. When Max turns 45, she realizes that she'd like to be retired in 20 years and decides now to start saving. So she saves $1,000 a month until she turns 65. In contrast, Emma starts saving when she's only 18 years old. She makes early sacrifices, stick to a strict budget, and saves $200 each month until she turns 65. So they both saved the same age. But one saves more for a shorter amount of time. So when Max turns 65, she'll have saved $240,000 of her own money, and her savings will be worth $465,351. So she's made $225,000 off of interest. In contrast, when Emma turns 65, she will only have saved $103,200 of her own dollars, but thanks to the compound interest, her savings will be worth $287,125. So she makes more than $100,000 more in interest, saving a smaller amount of money over a larger period of time.
We always talk about in the office, it's kind of like the flip of your debt repayment. So savings can really be beneficial in the same concept that your debt repayment. So you want to make consistent larger payments if you can for the debt. It's just the flip.
Yes.
Ooh, a visual.
So this is just a visual just to show you. So the blue part is their money that they put in. The red part is the interest. So it just shows you that Max's savings is really almost 50-50. Her money plus interest, whereas Emma's is, you know, a fifth is her own money. The rest is all interest. So she's just making a schwack load of money off the bank, which is nice. Any questions so far? You guys still with me? Okay, perfect. So next question, next thing we wanted to talk about is renting versus buying. I know when I graduated, it was like, oh, I must own a condo, like immediately. I can't rent, I must buy. Now I'm a grown up, I need to buy a house, which is crazy. So just a little bit of info for you to consider when you're thinking about those things. So renting is a good option if you aren't sure what your long-term plans are. Maybe you're applying for jobs at a lot of different places. You don't really know where you're going to lay roots, then renting is a good idea. Buying a house may be a good option if you plan on living in one place for a long time and you've considered all of the extra additional costs that go into owning a home. So maintenance, insurance, property tax, utilities, furnishings, upkeep, all those things come along with owning a house. Condo fees. Whew. So housing costs should not account for more than 32% of your gross income. So that's something that you want to think about. The other thing that you want to think about is, so when you get out of school, you've got your loan that you have to pay back, maybe you've got a line of credit, maybe you've got a credit card. Your total amount of debt repayment shouldn't be more than 40% of your total income. That includes this 32. So just something to think about, if it's a mortgage. Right? So you don't want, if you have really high loans, student loans, repayments, and credit cards and line of credit, you might not qualify for a mortgage, or you might want to think it might be better to save and then purchase later. Cool? Okay. So just a little bit more, renting versus buying. So the pros of renting, there's less maintenance and repairs. Sorry, I might sneeze. Nope, it's gone. Lower monthly upfront costs, shorter term commitment, allows flexibility for moving, And then protection from the decrease in property value. But some of the cons, your payments can increase without a lot of notice. There's a risk that your lease won't be renewed, your landlord might decide to sell, and then you are stuck finding something else. And you're also paying someone else's mortgage rather than building your own equity. When it comes to buying, some of the pros are building up equity in a safe, secure investment while paying down your own mortgage. Stability and peace of mind, being in control of your investment, and potential for rental income should you include a secondary suite. The cons, the risk of financial loss if your home loses value, and that does happen. Responsibility for all ongoing costs, including mortgage principal and interest, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. And I think maintenance is a big one that if you haven't owned a home or even lived on your own before, you don't realize quite what goes into the maintenance. Monthly payments can also increase if interest rates go up, and there is potential for costly repairs, like a hot water tank or whatever other weird thing might happen. There's all kinds of weird stuff. So,
Whoa, we were like really scared we weren't going to cover everything. So just some final tips. The FCAC, you also might think I work for the FCAC with how often I talk about them, but the FCAC is the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada. Them along with the Ontario Securities Commission, which is on the back here, they're really good resources. I know, when I was doing things like my own mortgage or looking for credit cards, they have a listing of every credit card in the country on this website, and you can go through and choose based on the benefits that you like, based on the interest rates and things like that. They have the same thing for every savings account in the country. You can go through and look at that. What I like about the FCAC, the FCAC is good because it has just like, in Canada, this is what this word means. This is what debt service ratio means. This is what, various mortgage terms means, things like that. You can just find the Canadian reference for that on the FCAC. But what I like about FCAC and the Ontario Securities Commission is that they have these other sections that are structured around like life events, which I thought was really neat. So moving out for the first time, moving in with another person, moving with a roommate or a partner if you've never done that before. Those are, even between roommate and partner, those are very different conversations about money and sharing your life in terms of money together. But other things that you might not think of, if you get an inheritance, what does that involve? If you are taking care of elderly family, just these sorts of course, buying a home, renting, buying a car. They arrange things in life events in a really, I think, useful, relatable way. So those websites are really good resources. Don't feel you have to go it alone or be like, I don't get any of this. Or maybe you talk to your financial advisor who's wonderful. Maybe you talk to your financial advisor who you still have questions afterwards. These are just good references to check out. If you need a line of credit, if you don't already have one, just making sure that you shop around. There are some really good ones out there. Gloria, there's some good ones out there. But just knowing what those terms are is really important.
there are some less good ones.
There are some less good ones out there. So just knowing what they are, being aware of repayment and what that is all going to look like is really important. Don't just go to the bank that you've gone to. I have been with RBC my whole life because I was a Leo Young Savers. I shouldn't do that anymore. But don't just do that. Don't be like me. Spend your money on what you value the most. That's something that we talk about our entire Money Talks sessions. The vein that runs through them is this common theme. How do you know what you want to budget? How do you know what you want to spend your money on if you don't know what it is you actually want to spend your money on? If you I know that sounds like a really basic question, but when you're sitting down and writing out your budget, you have the things that you can't change, your fixed costs. But beyond that, how do I write in the numbers for the other things if I don't even know what it is I really value? Up to now, I've been at school, and it's been crazy, and that's been what I value, and that's the only thing I've been focusing on. But now that you're done that, and you can do it also, do this self-reflection while you're in school. But now it's really up to you to decide, is owning the home the number one thing? Maybe it is. If it is, let's talk about what that means. If it isn't, maybe that's a longer term goal. That's
maybe
okay.
you're really into cars. You really want to own a car. Maybe you don't care about cars.
And just really evaluating what it is that you value. Maybe not the society or your family or your friends or whatever, but what it is that you value, because that is going to reflect in your budget. So just thinking about that, think about yourself. We're not saying cut out all the fun stuff out of your life. Maybe it's just a matter of reducing the things that are like only kind of fun and upping on the things that you really want to spend your money on, the things you really value.
Super fun.
The super fun things for you. Maybe that super fun thing is a trashy magazine. Maybe that's your thing. It's not my thing, but maybe that's your thing. And you say, you know what?
Subscription.
I need that every week.
Brings you joy.
That's fine. You know yourself. That is what you need. So maybe we cut out something else so that I can have that trashy magazine every month. That's a very small example.
Or like cable. Even something as simple as cable. Some people are like, I need cable. I cannot live without cable. Other people are like, I could care less. So, you know, you're just deciding, do you need it or not?
So just, thinking about those things. You can think about them right now. You can come to our session where we help you determine what your values are. And again, I know that sounds funny, but you might just not have thought about it for more than 8 seconds because school is a crazy time, right? And that is really being honest with yourself once you get to this point is really important. Spend the money. Oh, that's what you said. Ask for help. These resources are there for you. We are there for you. If you graduate, there are certain things in terms of your student loan we can't advocate for in the same way. We can't look up your file, things like that. But if you have questions about, like, I'm in repayment, does this sound right? Or who do I
got
talk
this
to?
letter.
I got this letter.
I don't
There's
know what it
always
means.
letters. There's always a million
And
letters.
they're always very confusing.
If you have questions about that, you can still come to us. We're still very happy to help if you're an alumni to help with that. If you're not graduated yet and you have general questions, you can still come to us to ask all those things. We're open all spring and summer. We got to be here all spring, summer, so you can come see us or call us or email us.
We're bored if no one comes.
Or get that financial advisor, or find that financial person in your life that seems to have it together. Ask for help. We shut down when it comes to money a lot of time, and we don't have to. There's a lot of stuff.
It seems
out there.
scary and overwhelming,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be.
No, look, we're fun. And be honest with yourself. And I know this sounds like, again, the funniest thing when it comes to money, but just being honest with yourself, knowing what it is that you value, really examining what are the things that I want when I graduate. Do I want to be debt-free? Do I want that home? Do I want that car? And have you thought about it for more than just, it's because I've always been told that that's what I need to do.
Another side of being honest with yourself, so we do we do all of the bursary assessments, and just maybe being aware of what you spend on things every month. So we will oftentimes, someone will estimate that they spend $200 a month on food, and then we look through your bank statements and it's like closer to $1,000.
Yeah.
So that's something, and you might not know, or you might be in denial, or who knows.
Yeah.
But just being aware, being honest with yourself. Yeah.
And we have one session that's just like, what is it that you value? And then our next session is, what are you actually spending your money on, and does it match with the values? Because you're right, when you might not even know. I remember I used to love when I was in school. There's that show Gale Vaz Oxlade.
Oh yeah.
It's like on Lifetime show or something.
She has like 4 shows.
She has like so many shows, but I would just watch that show and be like, that's not me. Like clearly, I'm so much better. And I'm like, I'm not that much better than these people on
No.
TV. I never actually
I'm
looked
in
at my bank
denial.
statement. That's a very
No.
scary thing. So just being honest.
And again, no judgment. If you want to spend $1,000 on food and you have $1,000 to spend on food, go to town. But just be aware that you're doing it.
Yeah. And that's who we are. So you can always come and see us after today. You can see us in person through Student Connect. That's that main floor of this administration building. But we also do run these financial literacy sessions. We have values-based budgeting, credit cards and debt, life after graduation, and student loan payment specific. So we kind of go into a deeper delve of what we've done here today.
And then they're done mainly by Trent. If anyone was here at the last session and met Trent, he's
Yeah.
very fun and interesting to listen
He's
to.
like really smart.
Yeah, he's
You can see us though in Student Connect. You can call us. If you have questions about
Email.
emergency funding or bursaries, we can also chat about that as well. So we'll stick around. We've been told that we should be done around 12:50. Whoa, we did such a good job. We'll stick around though. If anything else comes up, if you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, just come and see us. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.